What's up, everybody? It's Spencer Alessi, and this is the Esports Narrative. This is episode 1, and today I'm talking with STR8. So I'm here with STR8, and he's the designer for Straight Rippin'. He is also the chief design officer in charge of design of Apotheon Esports, and he's got his own design firm, Oxidized Design, and we'll link up all those Twitter handles and all that, and we'll make sure everybody knows where to contact him at. But he's on the show today, and I just want to give a little introduction. He's done a lot of work for Straight Rippin' as their designer. He's also done some non-commissioned stuff that's really awesome, really cool stuff. Definitely check out his work and see what he's done. But STR8, welcome to the show, man.
Hello there.
How's it going? So
good. How are you?
Good. It's going awesome. So how'd you get into design, and how did you get to be doing design for Straight Rippin'?
I first downloaded Photoshop and Cinema 4D back in 2012. And I actually started with designing for all those like sniping teams on YouTube and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was for the first year or two, and then I stopped design for a little while because things were just getting in the way and I didn't really have time to do it. But after a little while, probably early to middle of high school, kind of started back up, and I noticed that, esports and that kind of stuff was getting a lot bigger, so decided that I would try to get into that and see what I could do, and here I am now.
Nice. So were you always a gamer, like in high school and like growing up and kind of thing?
Oh yeah.
And then graphic design was kind of like you had a talent for artistry, or like how did you discover like you had a talent for it?
Well, I had seen a lot of like designers for all those like sniping teams and stuff, and I saw they were doing all this like cool like 3D work and all these different things, and I thought it would be fun to try it out. So
yeah. So the 3D design kind of thing really caught your eye, and like what you're able to do with the editing platforms like Photoshop and InDesign and all that stuff.
Yeah. I wasn't very good at it at the start though.
Yeah, no one is, right? Like I mean, some people, you have an innate talent, or I believe you have an innate talent for something, and you hone your craft after you practice it and you learn and you develop it. What's one thing that's you think been crucial to developing those skills? Like, is it you just do a lot of work and you just design stuff every day, like day in, day out, just design stuff and challenge yourself on what you design kind of thing?
Well, it's a few different things. Some of it was kind of seeing things that other people were making and, kind of thinking, how can I get to that point? Some of it was, this is a team that I really want to join. Maybe if I get good enough, then, that'll be an option. Or I also had, when I got into esports, I met Jordan, or J-Leg, and he really, we helped each other stay on track and stuff, and we were helping each other improve and make our designs overall a lot better. So it came down to basically wanting to join teams and having a lot of designers around me that were pushing me to, be better, giving me feedback on everything I did. And it was some of, doing as many designs as I could. Sometimes it's hard to think of just random stuff to do, but right. It did involve some just, I would see a team logo and I would be like, oh, that looks cool. I'll make something with it. I would just kind of pump something out and see how it looked. And if I liked it, then I would kind of keep that style for certain things and do other stuff for everything else. So, yeah.
So how long have you been with STR8, and how long have you been like officially like kind of designing stuff?
I've been in Straight Rippin' for only a couple months, actually. It's probably been no more than 2 or 3 months that I've been on the team. But
do you see like designers being more and more in demand in the industry as social media becomes more and more popular, and then the need for creative gets higher and higher, and there's more people needing that type of work? Do you see designers and artists like becoming in higher demand in the future?
Well, I mean, I feel like they've always been, kind of important to the scene in general. They're the ones that, make the logos, they make all the backgrounds for things and all the special designs that get posted. So I think there's always been a bit of a demand, but seems like it is growing a bit now, just because there's so many new teams coming out, like coming around like every day pretty much, that all these new teams are, wanting to have designers that can make stuff for them. So I do think there is a growing demand for it, and
Yeah.
as long as more teams are getting going, then it's just going to be more and more.
Yeah. Now that's a good point, because you said there's a lot of teams coming out, and it seems like all of them have, or not all of them, but a lot of them you see have pretty good designs, and I'm not a designer, so I can't really speak to the aesthetics of certain things, but it seems like they all have pretty decent designs. How much of that is being commoditized, and, how do you stand out as a designer in a kind of a crowded market where it seems like there's so many teams and so many logos? Like, how do you design in a way that makes you kind of stand out?
Well, it's not easy anymore, because basically any style of design, any design you can think of pretty much has been done already. Because there are so many of them out there that are really, really good that it's almost impossible to come up with something completely new. But a lot of it is, I'll look through, I have, designers that I look up to and that I, try to not really model my work after, but kind of I try to get to that level. And,
you get
something,
inspiration from them. You kind of get some
yeah,
vibes from them, and on what they're doing. You kind of feed off of it,
yeah,
and kind of make it your own kind of thing.
yeah. It's a lot of, I often look through, portfolios of just a bunch of different designers, see what kind of stuff they do, and, think like, oh, what if I did this, and try to come up with, my own style that I at least haven't seen around before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's cool. And do you get inspiration from stuff outside of esports, like street art or graffiti, that kind of thing too? Do you draw inspiration from outside sources like that?
yeah, like occasionally I'll I'll be, out wherever, and I'll see maybe, a logo on a restaurant or just a shop or something like that. And, if it has, really good elements, I'll kind of think of maybe how I would make it differently, or, what I would take out and maybe add in, or
Yeah.
something like that. Or even like advertisements on billboards on the freeway. Some of them are actually really cool. So
Yeah.
there's, you can look and find stuff anywhere, really.
Yeah, that's really cool to be able to draw inspiration from anywhere. It's like architecture and things like that. It's like once you start looking for things like that, I imagine they kind of pop up, and you start seeing things that maybe somebody else wouldn't, or who's not a designer wouldn't, kind of thing. So that's really cool. What's kind of changing gears a little bit? What's been the biggest failure or worst moment in your career so far, if any? Like, what's been something that's kind of set you back, or something that you've had to persevere through or overcome in esports?
Honestly, so my current studio that I run, that was actually originally, this is the second time that I've had it. The first time, it was in my freshman year of college. I had a roommate who was also a graphic design major, and he was interested in esports and stuff as well. And we figured, why not start a design studio for esports? Because, we both knew what we were doing. And, we thought it'd be a really good idea, make some extra money and stuff like that. But after the year ended, I actually decided to move back home for school. And we kind of like lost touch. So the original studio just kind of ended. And then, a couple of months ago, I, messaged him, and I asked if it was cool if I just started it back up and did my own thing. And he said that was fine. So, I think if if we hadn't really stopped doing it originally, then I feel like it would be a lot farther right now, because I personally am not, I'm not very good at marketing. I'm not good at, you know, reaching out to teams to try to sponsor them with it or anything like that. So it's, trying to run it like just on my own is pretty tough, at least for me, just with my experience. So yeah, I would say that was probably one of the worst decisions I made, was allowing it to end for the first time. So
Right. And that's pretty common, right? Like that you have.
oh yeah.
And it's nice that it's nice to see that someone of your age and stuff like that has that self-awareness to really acknowledge the fact that maybe you don't have the business and marketing acumen that somebody else might have, and that you're really, focusing on your art and your design work. I think that's really unique, and I think that's the opposite of what a lot of people do. I think a lot of people are confused, or they're lying to themselves to some extent, or they're hazed by it, to think that they're a business and marketing guru or entrepreneur just because they have their own studio and things like that. I think it's nice that you recognize the fact that you have your talents and you know what you're good at, and you tried to outsource or partner with someone really to do some of that other stuff. So I think that's a really important lesson.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the overcoming the failures and how that decision went. What's been a big accomplishment, in your esports career? Like, what's been something that you're really proud of?
Well, I would say my biggest two accomplishments so far are, probably joining the teams that I'm in right now, because at the time that I joined Apotheon, that was the biggest team that I had joined. It was a team that, had been to Call of Duty Champs in 2016. They had done a lot of, big things in their past that, kind of set them apart from some other teams. So that was a big accomplishment. And then joining Straight was definitely a big one, because, just the influence they've always had on the Halo community, I've always thought that was really cool. So being able to, be a part of them and, make things, in that area is definitely something I'm proud of.
Yeah, Straight has been around a while. I mean, they have a lot of clout in the Halo community and esports in general too. I mean, they, with their sponsorships and endorsements and just their following on social, like they've got a big following. They're a really good team and organization, and it's definitely an accomplishment to be working with them. So that's awesome. Good for you on that. We've talked a little bit about like being successful at design and in the industry a little bit, but I want to touch a little bit more of what you think it takes to get to the point where you're at now. And in other episodes of the show, we've talked about relationships and networking and stuff like that. But what's some things that you think are essential to being successful as a designer in the esports industry?
Well, obviously, one of the big things is having connections. If you, come into esports as a designer, you don't know anybody, then it can be difficult to join, a team at all. It's because, you have to make contacts. You have to be able to reach out to people and talk to them about certain things. Like one of like the biggest things is to have friends that are constantly, making you better, giving you feedback on things that you do and making sure that you're staying on track. Because it definitely, if you don't have, like, especially with designing, if you don't have people that are kind of, there to give you feedback on something you made, or, tell you whether or not, you're the right person to go for a team or something, those are, they tend to be pretty, useful, because they can help you a lot along the way. And I've had a lot of friends in the design community that have really helped me get to where I am. So having friends is definitely important, and, just knowing as many people as you can, being able to reach out and, get in contact with people, even if you don't think they're going to respond, just try it anyways. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, just slide in those DMs, It's the way to do it now. It's just DM, DM, DM. I mean, that's how I started this podcast. It's just DMing everyone in esports, and
Yeah.
I DM'd the first 24, 40 hours that I started going heavy on interview or trying to get people to interview. I messaged probably 70 or 80 people, and I got 5 replies.
Yeah,
It's just
it's
DM,
tough.
like DM, like nonstop. But it's also like with the critiquing and stuff. I imagine, you're kind of your own worst enemy in some regards, and maybe you're not even the best critic for your own work, kind of thing. Like,
oh God, no.
in a lot of aspects, I think that you put something out or you design something that you might feel is not as good or inadequate or not impressive, but you might put it out and the industry might love it. Like, teams might love it. And
I
think
come across that plenty of times. I'll make designs all the time, and my first thought is I definitely could have made this a lot better, and then I show somebody anyways, and they're like that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
so,
you're looking at the same thing I am.
So that makes me ask the question: is like, is it then important to just pump out a lot of content and then kind of like not really like spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks, but just pumping out like as good a content as you can and not being a perfectionist, but getting out good content and putting it out there in the market and see what the reception is and see if you're on the right track. I feel like that might be a good strategy. Is that kind of what you see in the industry?
Well, I mean, I'm a believer in quality over quantity. So if I make 4 or 5 designs that are kind of just like average, but I think they're like postable, then I won't necessarily post them. I'll kind of maybe take like the top 2 that I think are good, really focus on those, like really try to make them as good as possible, go through all the changes that I think might need to be made, and then post them. Because while it certainly gets your name out there more if you're just constantly posting things, it often reflects on the designer more, like in a positive way, if the things that they are posting are is stuff that they really took time on and really wanted to make as good as possible. Because you can post 10 designs a day, but it doesn't mean that they're all going to be as good as people think they could be, or even as good as you want them to be. So I think it can go either way. It just depends on the designer and what they can do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there is an argument for quality over quantity, and it's a difficult balance now because like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of teams, there's a lot of logos, so it's almost like not waiting, but holding on to certain designs and stuff like that is one strategy to do that, and another one might be to put out a lot of content, and not even just logos and stuff like that, but doing other design work in general that's maybe like it's maybe a subset or a niche or something like that. Other design work that's maybe not a jersey or a Twitch overlay or something like that, but something else to kind of get your name out there as a designer might be kind of neat too. What gets you really excited to wake up every day and design? And it sounds like it's something that you really enjoy doing. So what gets you excited about doing it? What keeps you going at it?
I guess it would be mostly that when I think about something I'm going to make that day, I get excited when I can think of 5 different concepts that I want to do for something, and in my mind they all look good. So it kind of gets you excited when you can wake up and actually picture what you're going to make later that day. It's just it's fun to be able to visualize stuff that you haven't even done anything with yet. So
yeah,
that's
so
definitely
kind of like
big.
anticipating. You're thinking about these designs all day or like over the course of days, and you are developing these ideas kind of in your head, and the anticipation of designing those things is kind of like exciting, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to be able to think about what you're going to do, and then especially later on, if you can actually go on your computer and do it, it makes it all the more better.
That's the key, right? I mean, you can think and ponder and hope and wish all day long and draw up designs in your head, but you actually, like you said, you actually got to go out and you got to execute. You got to create something that's good and that's receptive in the community.
Yeah, and there's been countless times that I've, thought of something in my head that I think looks super cool, and then either I do it and it looks terrible, or I try to do it and just can't pull it off. And both of them really suck because, it's never fun to think of something that looks cool, but, ends up not turning out the way you want. So it's really just about, trying to figure out in your mind what actually looks good. And that can actually, that's a skill that can be acquired, over time. The longer you design, the more you kind of already know what might look good or bad. So
yeah, no, I definitely agree. Now, this is the part of the episode where we do what I call the 5-question combo breaker, which is kind of like a lightning round. It's quick answers. So we're gonna ask you a couple questions here. Give me like off the cuff what your first instinct is or for a response, and we'll go from there. So number one is what's the best advice someone has ever given you? Whether it's about esports or life or just in general, what's the best advice someone's ever given you?
probably that if you're good at something and you think that it can actually go somewhere, don't give it up.
Okay, nice. What do you think the esports industry needs to continue to grow and be successful?
I think it needs probably, I don't want to say more events, but I don't know, I feel like some events I've watched have been kind of different than what I imagined. So maybe just like, more games, more, excitement around events, more hyping them up, more, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Now, if you were not in esports and you weren't designing for esports orgs, what would you be doing?
I think I would still be. I think I would be branched out more into professional design in the sense of user interface, user experience. Because even if I wasn't in esports, I would still want to be in the design field because that's what I really like to do. So I think if I wasn't involved in esports, I would be trying for internships with different companies, trying to get jobs with user interface stuff. And yeah, I think if I wasn't in esports, that would be what I would be doing.
Yeah. Now you've been commissioned to do jerseys like the Apotheon jersey, right? That was one of the jerseys that you got commissioned to do. Was the Valkyrie jersey another one?
That was actually a team that I started months ago, and let's just say it didn't go very well because, like I said, I don't have the experience needed or the funding needed to do an esports team. So I even going into it, I knew I was like, this probably isn't going to go very far, but I'm going to try it anyways. It was more just for fun, like an experiment, I guess.
That's the best kind, dude. That's you fail and try and do and over and over and over again. But that's my long-winded way of asking, what's your favorite design you've ever done? Whether it's like a jersey or an overlay or a logo.
Boy.
What's your best design or your favorite, personally?
Well,
maybe not the one that's the best received, but like, what's your favorite one that you've ever done?
So my favorite one, it's in my portfolio, and it's a Twitch package for a team called Laser Kittens. And the reason
name, by the way.
It really is. The reason I like it so much was because in all of the stream designs that I had done before then, all of my overlays and just everything in general about my Twitch packages had always been super flat and the same style for every single one. So doing this other one was, once I finished, I looked at it and I was like, I just basically was able to pull off the style that I've seen with so many other designers that I look up to that, they're able to do on a regular basis. And I was actually finally able to, actually, make something that somewhat reflected on the work that they do. So it was really well received too, but it was, it was more just the fact that, I was able to actually do something that um, was in, a style and skill set that I was really shooting for. So,
Yeah, nice. Now, the last one is, what's the best play in esports you've ever seen? Like the
like,
craziest,
like a player?
scene, yeah, or the best move you've seen, or the best series of kills, or frags, or whatever it is. Like, what's been the most iconic play for you in esports?
Well, I personally would probably say, Optic Formal he's been my favorite player for a while, and I can't remember what event it was. It was like Atlanta or Orlando or something, but they were in like a game 5 against FaZe, and Formal had like planted the bomb or something under the bridge on throwback, and Clayster had like he had gotten it down to like a 1v1 after it was a 1v3, and he like went and started shooting Formal in the back, and then Formal turned around, used his FTL jump, and like got the kill. And that was like, I was watching that and I was like, there's no way he just did that. So I got super excited because like I had never seen anybody do that before. So it was crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine like crowds just absolutely going
Oh
wild.
my God.
And
I
the
they
hype and the
they switched
excitement.
right to a camera view of the crowd, and everybody was just like on their feet, jumping around, going crazy. It was super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's the show. I just want to say thanks so much for being like literally the first episode of the esports narrative. It was really awesome talking to you.
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck in all your design endeavors and with the teams that you do work for. Anybody who hires you is going to get great work from what I've seen. So just really good job. Really
Thank
respect
you.
your work in the industry, and just want to say thanks again for coming on the show, and hopefully we can talk again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This was the first time I've done something like this, so it was pretty fun.
Yeah, thanks, man. I will talk to you soon, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, listeners. I really appreciate you. It would mean the world to me if you subscribed and shared the show. Your word of mouth is amazing.